silence and put away cell phones. If you need to step away or attend to personal matters, please make a motion to recess.
Ollie
tho-
Bell has joined.
For those participating by phone, please keep your device muted unless you are speaking. When speaking, kindly state your name for the benefit of those viewing the live stream. As a reminder, this meeting is being broadcast live. The camera is located above the clock at the back of the council chambers. Our proceedings follow Robert's Rules of Order. As set forth in Wasilla Municipal Code 2.04.090, to promote an orderly and respectful meeting, I respectfully ask the council to observe the following rules. Please seek recognition before speaking. No member may speak more than twice on the same motion without a vote to suspend the rules. No member may speak a second time until all who wish to speak have had the opportunity to do so. These guidelines help ensure fairness, efficiency, and mutual respect during our discussions. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Councilmember Cottle.
Here.
Councilmember Graham.
Here.
Councilmember Schmidt.
Here.
Councilmember Crafton.
Here.
Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
Councilmember Deputy Mayor Rubio.
Here.
Thank you. You have a quorum. All members are present with us in chambers, and I believe our city attorney is online telephonically.
Thank you. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Cottle, would you please lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item of business is approval of the agenda. First, are there any conflicts of interest to declare? Hearing none, I'll take requested changes to the agenda. Before doing so, Mayor Ledford had requested that item 8.2.1, ordinance serial number 26-15, item 10.1, resolution serial number 26-44, and item 10.2, resolution serial number 26-45 be removed from tonight's agenda. Are there additional changes to the agenda?
Madam Deputy Mayor.
Councilman Crafton.
Thank you. I'd like to make two changes. First, could we move item 6.4, the Planning Commission report, to happen before 6.3, the Mat-Su Valley Planning for Transportation? And then push up item 10.3, resolution serial 2646 to happen alongside the Mat-Su Valley Planning for Transportation presentation. So essentially we'll have the presentation and then go right into the resolution, happen at the same time.
Is there any objection to approving the agenda as amended? Hearing none, the agenda is approved by unanimous consent. There are no special orders of the day. We are now at commission and agency reports. We will begin with a presentation on budgeting software from ClearGov.
Good evening, Matt. Excuse me. Good evening, all. Very excited about ClearGov. This is an amazing product that will simplify and not necessarily simplify, but will bring our budget statements to a place of consolidation. And we'll also do it in real time as well. Worked with Ted on this project because he was very passionate about bringing that forward. And we're bringing it tonight to take a little look at what it can do to our budget. Matsu Barrow, I don't know if you remember discussions with this, they also have this on their website. So if you wanted to look at that and see a little bit about how it can be used, they have a wonderful site and with this program as well. I do have Keon, the ClearGov representative on, and he will take over the discussion and also show the presentation. I'm not quite sure. Eric, I'm on the right.
Sarah, are you able to turn up the volume? Is there volume on the TV?
It's up.
I did not touch it.
Oh, no, don't change your Wi-Fi.
Okay.
Yeah. There'll be no sign language.
Oh,
Shoot that
sorry.
your Wi-Fi again.
When they tell my son to take care of.
So it might be.
Do you think so?
It's hard to say. One thing we could do is switch back to just your computer. No, that's no. You want to go down to the.
Run through.
Try that and see if you can hear. You're all the way up.
That was what he suggested.
Did anything change?
The more capability you have, the harder it is to use.
Let's go in and out again. Keon, can you go out and go? Okay. See if that'll do it.
Something on his end.
You can hear her computer.
Oh.
I wonder if I turned him up too loud.
I see that itch. Okay, so hang on. So, say join.
We can have Steve here.
Hello, hello.
Yes.
Oh, there we go.
Thank you. Thank you, Eric.
Yeah, thank you guys. The classic just leave and rejoin always works out.
Okay. Do you want to just go ahead and do you want to discuss a little
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I think in the beginning, I didn't hear you, Wendy. I'm not sure if you gave an introduction at all or anything, but happy to just kind of take over and share my screen if the time's right.
Sure. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well. First of all, I can't see everybody in the room, but I want to thank the entire council member team for allowing me to hop on this call and just provide a brief presentation about what Wendy and I have been working through the past few months here, and before that with Ted and Crystal and Jacqueline, just to kind of provide the city of Wasilla a budget cycle management suite. So what I'm going to do first is just share a couple of slides to really highlight some of the work that we have done here in the past few months, and I'll share my screen. So let me know. Let me make sure everybody can see. Are you able to see my screen, Wendy?
Yes, yes.
Fantastic. So let me kind of just backtrack a little bit for anybody who's not as familiar with ClearGov. So we're a budget cycle management suite. Pretty much what we have heard over the past 10 plus years of us being in the GovTech industry and working with civics, school districts, boroughs, counties, and all of the above, is that majority of local governments are using a mix of spreadsheets, their accounting system, PowerPoint, and Excel to consolidate their entire budget and to complete their budget. Now, where this leaves people is just really with a manual, tedious, and scattered process at the end of the day, having to go from tab to tab. At the end of the day, Excel is very error prone as well and time consuming. So our goal is to replace that time consuming manual Excel process and replace it with something that's going to work alongside Tyler, your guys' accounting system. So just some information right here. You know, we have been around for 10 plus years. We have a handful of customers in Alaska right now, both boroughs, cities, school districts, and special districts as well. And we are currently working with over 2,000 local governments. Here's just some of the local governments that we work with across the state of Alaska. Just leave that up for a second so everybody can just take a peek. And I'm actually going to share with you guys Matsu's digital budget book towards the end of this as well. So, you know, what we have been doing and kind of the challenges that I've heard from the finance team is that currently Wasilla is creating a manual budget presentation. Now, at the end of the day, after the budget, after you're compiling all budget requests, capital projects being included, personnel costs, there's only so much time in the day to compile a 400-page budget presentation. But not only compile that, it's kind of telling your financial story. So it's not how are you going to create a budget presentation, it's how are you going to do it in a way that's digestible, user-friendly, and interactive that people outside of finance can very easily understand. Right now with Tyler, it's not necessarily a connected system, so you're having to go from Excel to Tyler and back and forth, which leaves just kind of not necessarily a disconnected process. Along with capital projects, so when Ted and I began this journey, he was mentioning how this aligned with some of Wasilla's strategic goals within the capital improvement plan. So that's where we align with our capital project tracking and our capital budgeting module. So the goal at the end of the day is not to just create you guys a budget book, but really create you guys a entire budget cycle management suite. So something that's going to speak with one another. So all the modules will speak with one another. So that's going to really streamline the process and make it easy for Wendy and the entire finance team to really have a full grasp and understanding of, hey, what's going to be feasible for our upcoming budget cycle? What's going to be feasible for the upcoming fiscal years? ClearGov is going to allow you guys to create not only 1 year ahead, but a multi-year horizon of scenarios with our capital project tracking and our capital budgeting modules, along with the digital budget book and operational budgeting. It's also going to streamline communication, and that's not only with the council members, but all department heads across the board. So we're going to provide you guys with different levels of viewing access. So maybe if a council member wants to be involved and see a very high level bird's eye view of the budget, the finance team can grant them access to a viewership sort of view throughout the ClearGov budget cycle within the platform. So what this is gonna mean, like, not only for the council, but like, one thing important is that people are going to get instant answers. So instead of having to search through a 400-page book, ClearGov's digital budget book allows you to search up certain parts of the budget. Along with that, if there's any specific council agendas relating to the budget, you can actually print out parts of the digital budget book as a PDF and just present that section at a specific council meeting. This will allow people to really focus on what's important, and at the end of the day, it's not for the finance team to be graphic designers, you could say. It's for them to really focus on the narrative, tell the story of the finances. Where is the money going and why? And again, it's just going to build that extra level of confidence heading into the budget season and for the months outside of the budget. Really, this is built, you know, like you might ask, like, why is this going to be important? One of the reasons is we're going to have a SFTP integration with Tyler. What this is going to do is make sure that data is going to be kept up to date on a cadence base. So you're not going to have to configure spreadsheets and consolidate information. It's all going to be tied in with Tyler. I mentioned this to Wendy before, but about 65 to 70% of ClearGov's current customer base uses some sort of Tyler technology. So it's not a direct integration. It's not a direct API. We use a SFTP, which makes that file transport very simple and very streamlined to make sure that your budget is kept up to date. And not only the council, but department heads can be responsible for their budget throughout the year. We're going to grant you guys faster turnaround time and allow you to be proactive as the year goes on. So, you know, at the end of the day, we always want to tie into like, what's the ROI in this? Like, how can you justify spending X amount of dollars on a software? One of the things is we see so many of our customers just cut down the hours into the workday. You get that time back with your family. Along with that, more so like on the quantitative side, you can eliminate a lot of manual spreadsheet work. That error-prone process, something that's very important in our customers who are using ClearGov, is that this can actually survive that turnover process. Within local government, we see turnover happen all the time. Having something in place is going to eliminate that kind of passover of institutional knowledge. So anytime somebody's leaving, instead of having to teach the next person or pass down their lengthy spreadsheets that they worked on for 20, 25 years, having something in place like this that's easy to learn and easy to digest makes that transition a lot easier. At the end of the day, you're going to get real public transparency. Everybody's going to be in the know and involved in where the finances are getting spent. So back to telling your financial story. You know, at the end of the day, this is purpose-built for local government. Within the ClearGov team, our client success, our customer service team, a bunch of people within ClearGov are ex-local government members. We have city mayors, council members, and everybody involved on our team to help make these decisions. So we're taking this and created this from the ground up, specifically tailored for local government. You know, a lot of people were like, oh, well, you know, we tried to do it with our accounting system, or we're fine with Excel, or, you know, we tried this other software. But a lot of the challenges that come into play there is like, for example, Tyler is a great system, but it's not built for budgeting. It's an accounting system, you know? So we wanted to have something in place to work as a complement alongside of Tyler, so you can really maximize efficiency just across the city. Obviously, you know, we have a wide variety of customers within Alaska who have been using ClearGov and using ClearGov very successfully for a numerous amount of years now. So that's end of the slide, just providing a little bit of background within ClearGov. Before I kind of switch gears and show you one of our customers in Alaska, Mat-Su Burroughs digital budget book, I wanted to take a quick pause and see if there's any questions before I move into that.
I think they're excited to see what it does.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, this is the the back end piece of the digital budget book. I didn't want to like bore everybody with feature function because at the end of the day, like Wendy and I have gone through a variety of times of like the ins and outs of where this is going to save time, but I want to show you what like a final output might look like. So this is Matsu Burroughs' digital budget book that they published in 2026. This was produced straight from them using our budgeting module. So within ClearGov, they were able to plan their budget for 26 and then create this budget book. So where we come into play, this is going to be a live cloud-based document that's on your guys' website. It's all backed by ClearGov, so there's no IT, no hosting involved on your end. But we take care of all of this automation. So you'll see how this is going to be interactive, very user-friendly, easy to digest. And this is going to be their table of contents on the left-hand side. Everybody's is customizable and going to be tailored to exactly how you want it to look. So that's the whole idea. Like, we are a very versatile, customizable tool, but ClearGov is going to take care of like a lot of the manual labor and manual efforts that you might be doing today to save you time and really focus on the financial story. So let's say we dive into something. Let's go
Keon?
to,
Keon, we don't see the Matsu Burrow.
oh, apologies.
There it
How
goes.
about now?
Thank you.
All right, good to know. Well, I gave you the whole spiel, but anyways, this is all created by ClearGov. So all these charts and graphs is done on our end. Your guys' job again is just tell your financial story, add any narrative that's involved. But here, like I want to show you on the left-hand side, this table of context, completely customizable and tailored to what's going to resonate with the city of Wausau. So let's say I dive into capital projects right here. We can go right into it, pop that open, and I can see community development. So that's where I'm in right now. I'm going to be able to see all of the projects that are taking place within the community development department. And here I can see those projects, along with a year-over-year projection and current fiscal year of how much has been allocated to those projects. So this is coming straight from the capital project tracking tool. So let's say I click on the Big Lake Recreation Center. It's going to give a description, location, overview of that project, along with how much has been budgeted for that project. And if it's not spent all the way up to date, you'd be able to see the year-to-date spend on the project. So that's just an example of one of the capital projects here. But this is going to display much more. For example, your general fund, revenues versus expenditures, all sorts of different introduction, transmittal letters, and everything that's associated with the budget within your financial ledger that ClearGov can display. So if we go to like area-wide revenues, they have like a little page associated to that that's going to talk about, you know, a little detail as to, you know, where the money's getting spent, how much is getting spent. What's so nice about this is that it's going to be kept up to date with that integration with Tyler. So you're not having to worry about digging through a 400-page document, looking for one number that needs to be changed in 10 different spots. The way we have this built is that if one thing changes in one place, it's going to change throughout the entire document where it's needed to be changed. Wendy, is there anything else on the digital budget book piece that you would like me to show or like to see right now? I know I mentioned the PDF functionality. This is where you can create a PDF version of as many pages as you like through the document. You can select different pages or include all pages as a PDF.
Could you show them the AI piece of it that a community member could look for information?
Yep, absolutely. So let me pull that up for us real quick. Second here.
I thought that was very helpful. If you didn't know where to look for something, you could at least put that information in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Can everybody see the HeroVille financial engagement section?
Yes.
Okay. So this is going to be the financial engagement piece of ClearGov. Again, it's kind of goes hand in hand with the budget book. What this is going to do is allow people to get that real-time information and ask questions if they have any questions. So for example, we have this, and you're referring to this chat box right here, Wendy, that we went through?
Well, it was in the table of contents. There was a chat box at the bottom.
Yeah.
the Ask AI
Right.
assistance.
Yeah, so this is just like an extended
Okay.
version of that, but I just
Okay.
thought I'd show the larger picture of it.
Okay.
So for example, this is like the City of Heroville's chat box. So you're able to ask anything based off of, you see here, like their official adopted budget that they've approved. So down here, you can create, you can ask it, show me revenue trends, let's say per year. And you can actually ask it that in the chat, and then it's going to pop up with revenue trends for you. So here's what the training data shows about Heroville's overall revenue trends by year, and provide that information for you. So it's easy to find, easy to digest, and going to kind of filter it out in layman's terms for everybody. So that's one of the cool like AI functionalities that ClearGov has, alongside of the, for example, ability to dive into, year over year actual versus budgeted, and then different years of, maybe you want to look at special revenues funds, general fund, by department category. It's very customizable in how people want to view this. The important thing to note is that whatever is shown on here is completely, up to you guys at the end of the day. Like, you get to decide what pieces of the budget are displayed and how they are displayed. But it's all coming from the operational budget, which is tied into Tyler. Any questions on that?
What's the checkbook? Checkbook. What is the checkbook?
Yeah, so the checkbook essentially is going to be, again, tied into Tyler and show basically just like purchases that have occurred. And again, like this table of context on the top here, customizable. So some people maybe don't have their projects tab up, but this projects tab would take you again to like the capital project tracking module. So it's a perfect leeway into one of the other tools that we are looking at. The capital project tracking will show all the projects and where they're happening. Let's say I dive into the new park. It's going to show me the progress of the project, how much of it has been completed, and exactly how much has been spent year to date versus how much has been allocated. So you can see for this project, they're over budget already. If you dive into timeline, you can see timeline updates, financials. So how project spending is comparing to the budget, along with any photos, documents, announcements for that project. So this is going to tie in with, I know Ted and I discussed it, one of the capital improvement plans where the capital project tracking module will tie into. What's nice about this is once the capital projects are approved within the capital budgeting tool, they're going to flow directly to this, which is the capital project tracking, to streamline that entire process. So we take care of like the completion percentages, like that's all calculated automatically for you guys. Okay. In terms of the last module that we didn't have a chance to touch on, just the operational piece. So I want to speak on this, and this is a product brief about it. Essentially, the idea here in the workflow of the operational budget is to allow the finance team to streamline communication and get basically, hopefully better feasible budget intake and input across all departments. So we're going to use a variety of visualizations and historic years to allow department heads to put budget requests in during the budget season, along with comments, attachments, and notes all in one place. So the idea of this is that you're not going to have to go through email conversations that you're remembering. All communication, all budget requests, mid-year, early year, during budget season are going to be saved and kept within the operational budgeting piece, which at the end of the day is that master spreadsheet. And this is what I mentioned that, and let me just zoom in for everybody. And here, let me show, I just realized on Microsoft Teams, you have to switch the sharing tab every time, so I apologize. The operational piece is going to be an easy way for not only the finance team and council members to have insight into the budget. It's going to be a great way for department heads to really easily access their budget instead of having to dive into spreadsheets or Tyler. It's all going to be kept under one place, and throughout the year they can actually be responsible for their budget and see where they are at with their year-to-day actuals. So they can create that forecast with ease, streamline your request and approvals, and determine different levels of access that people can have, and really get those breakdowns of historical versus actuals. So really streamline the entire budgeting process. Here's just like a quick quote from one of our customers that currently uses our operational piece. Really just talking about how, got rid of that room for error, and really the manual laborious hours they had to spend across multiple spreadsheets and tabs and dealing with the error-prone process. All right. So, that's all I had for everybody today. I wanted to take a step back. I know hopefully I didn't go too long, but I do appreciate everybody's time. I know this is not the first time that everybody has seen ClearGov. I've shared a variety of different materials with Wendy, so she can share that with you as needed. But again, I do appreciate everybody's time. And if there's any other questions, I want to just, save a couple minutes for any Q&A that might have popped up or wasn't answered.
Councilmember Schmidt?
Yeah, I got a couple questions here. So, how much information would be available for like city residents that wanted to dig into this and view some items? And then the other question would be, is there separate logins for like residents versus councilmen versus city managers? And then the second item, is there some sort of alert system that if you've used significantly portion of your budget in the first, say, month or two of the year, does it send up alerts to the city managers in that area and say, hey, you've already used up, 3/4 of your budget and here you're at month 2?
Okay, great questions. I'll tackle them one by one. So first question regarding like how much information you are able to put out there, correct? Like how much information can people see? As I mentioned on the digital budget book and financial engagement piece, the whole idea of it is that it's customizable to as much information as you guys want to be provided out there. So maybe something is not ready to be available on the digital budget book. You can actually not have certain pieces included yet. So it is completely customizable and up to you as to how much information and how detailed of information you want to be available in the digital budget book. Does that answer that question?
Yeah, and then the second one was, is there separate like logins for specific like department managers or councils, or have you not?
So the way the public facing pieces look and work is you guys decide when they're going to be available to the public. So the residents and general public won't have access to that until you make it visible to the public. So basically like when it's a finalized document, right? So we don't want them to have access while Wendy is still creating narrative or working on the table of context. So they don't require any login. When it's available on your guys' website is when they'll be able to have access to the budget presentations or capital projects that are available. Internally, everybody is going to have their individual login, but the way ClearGov works is on an annual subscription with unlimited amount of users and logins, but you're allowed to give people different levels of access. So not everyone is going to necessarily have the same levels of access that Wendy has. For example, department heads, you won't want them to make adjustments in a different department on accident, which is why we give them certain levels of access. So they'll only have access, for example, community development is only going to have access to the community development budget itself. Segueing into your other question of like alerts. So for example, when the updated budget is put into ClearGov, they'll get notified that their budget has been updated and there's a new set of budget to actuals there. They're not going to get any like red flag or notification of that sort, but they'll be able to go in and Wendy is going to have full access to see if people are spending too much or how they're pacing on track with their budget.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Crafton?
Oh, thank you. Where does this normally, and this might be a question for our team, where does this normally live? Because pulled up the Matsu Boroughs website and was trying to find this on theirs. And I found their online checkbook. Is that what ClearGov is, or is that something different?
I don't think that's, I'd have to look, but that's not what I showed you guys today. So I showed the digital budget book. The online checkbook, I don't believe was published through us. Typically what we see is people will put it on the budget or finance department page within their website. So again, I mean, you kind of are correct. It is depending on you guys of where you want it to be living on your website.
And that's the digital budget book, right? You're talking about?
Correct. Yeah. So basically what I could do, so for example, I pulled the Matsu one I showed you guys today off of the
Okay, thank you.
I had the link open. I don't remember exactly where I went to find it, but if I had to guess, it was somewhere under their budget or finance team's department page.
Councilman Graham?
Thank you. I have several questions for you. Number one, thank you for spending time with us tonight to start walking us through this. But so to put things in perspective, things that we can handle, based on our experience, how big is the borough's budget book? How many pages does that have? I mean, we know what it looked like in paper, but now you're saying it's digital. So is it going to create the same amount of data on the same amount of pages, or is the idea to put more data on smaller pages? What can you answer that?
And I totally understand where you're coming from, and thanks for asking that question. The idea is not to necessarily like pile up a bunch of information within, the digital budget book. I think at the end of the day, the objective of it is to provide that information. For example, the 400-page budget presentation right now in a more digestible, easy to read way. So instead of somebody having to go through like a static document that's taking a lot of time to create, we want to lay it out as easily as you could be. So essentially you could go through this like a booklet format kind of down the line with visualizations, interactiveness, where people can really dive in to the weeds of the budget. So the idea is to allow you guys to tell your financial story in a more effective way than it might be on trying to, let's say, scramble last minute to find a missing number or an error in, page 200 of the budget presentation a day before having to have it ready to go. It's not necessarily like, hey, let's not put as much information out there. We want you guys to put up as much information as needed in an easy to digest format.
Okay, thank you. So for city council, the departments bring forward their budgets and we go through them page by page, oftentimes item by item to see things. So as the council changes things or proposes amendments, is there a way to track those amendments in your digital book? I mean, we say, Eric brought forward $500,000 and we said, well, it really ought to be $412,000. And then later on in the budget process, it may get bumped up to $460,000. Is there a way to track those changes?
Correct. So I just want to make sure I'm hearing the question right. You're talking about, let's say, mid-year amendments or mid-year request on the budget.
I'm talking about during the budget process. They bring forward a budget and it's up to the council to amend and approve that budget.
Yes, so you will be able to have access. So that's actually going to happen within the operational budgeting tool, which can also happen in the digital budget book before it's published. There's a multiple variety of ways that the council will have access to see, for example, like what budget requests have happened throughout the budget process. That's where the operational budgeting piece comes into play, where departments, finance teams, and the council can have that viewership into who's requesting what dollar amount, along with reasons as to why. So where's the justification in requesting that amount at this time in the budget?
Okay, thank you. So
Thank you.
I'm looking at your presentation here on a, what was it, 70-inch screen, pretty good sized screen, and I can barely see it. What's this going to look like on my 9-inch iPad? I mean, that's
Yeah, and so one thing I will say, in terms of accessibility wise, ClearGov is ADA compliant, so you can have zoom in options, bigger font put on there, different languages. That's always an option. We also have a mobile friendly version that's compatible with iPhone, iPad, whatever it might be. So if somebody's looking, so for example, if you went to the Matsu Borough one, you'd be able to see what the mobile friendly version looks like on your phone, 9-inch screen. To of course not have it in such small letters. And I apologize, I should have made it larger for everybody to see. I didn't realize that you weren't able to see it, so I apologize for that.
Well, I was able to see it, but my trifocals did a lot of adjusting to try and make that work, so. But, so if you were to compare, you know, a similar sized city to Wasilla, you know, $40 million budget roughly, how much savings has that city reported to you by using ClearGov, or how much time do they now have available to allocate to other tasks? Do you have any reports of that?
Yeah, we absolutely do have reports. So it might take me a second to pull them up. We have something called case studies that essentially talks on kind of the ROI, time savings, of, you know, value number wise of what people receive from using ClearGov. I'm happy to share those examples with Wendy if she's able to share them with you. I just don't want to waste time looking it up right now.
And I appreciate that. We can look at that later.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to share that.
And
Okay.
we do know that, Jackie just got the budgets back to you, and placed them in your, you know, your electronic Dropbox. So it's taken her a month from, well, more than a month from when the budget was adopted till now to be able to make all those changes.
Okay, thank you. And then the last thing I have to do, last question I have has to do with the cloud. Now, the cloud isn't a place. It's, you know, the cloud is thousands of spaces around, you know, the United States and around the world. So this data is stored in the cloud, and I go in there as Stu Graham and say, hey, I want to see this data and I want to see this data. Is there a record of what I'm looking at, or is it these searches like you talked about? Is it personalized? Like when you go to Google and say, hey, show me a tent, then all of a sudden you get 600 tent advertisements. Is this, you know, is this data shared with anybody outside of ClearGov? And is it shared with any of the managers and things here in the city?
That's an interesting question. So I just want to make sure I'm unpacking that properly. So is this a like IT security question? Or are you asking, like, do you want people to have that level of access? Or are you asking on the side of like precaution, as in, you know, we don't want people to be getting a bunch, like, who's having access to this information that you're giving us through Tyler per se?
Well, here in Alaska, we have what's called an Open Meetings Act. So of the 6 council people, only a certain number of us can talk about a specific thing before it becomes an Open Meetings Act violation. So for instance, if I were researching, you know, something, and I had Councilperson Johnson working on that with me, and then all of a sudden, you know, Councilperson Crafton started working on that on a separate tack, you know, I'm just concerned, is somebody gonna look and say, well, what's Stu working on, so I don't work on that? Or when I look at it and say, well, what's Ian working on, so I don't work on that? That's, I don't know.
I see what you're saying. In terms of working and making changes within the budget, ClearGov does have within the ClearGov software audit trails where you can see changes that people have made.
Okay, I think that's helpful. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Councilman Crafton?
Thank you. Mr. Graham, just to show you, I pulled up the boroughs. I know you can't see it from there, but I mean, I can say it. It's pretty easy to read once you pull it up on there. I think it was just because his screen wasn't zoomed in all the way on that.
And I could see that,
Yeah.
but some of the spreadsheets that we were presented with during budgeting, I mean, had what, 25 columns on them.
Correct.
Yeah. So that's my concern, is how am I gonna be able to scroll across that and keep headers and things to be able to see the data in the right presentation, so.
Correct. Always
That's,
problems.
that's all workable, I'm sure.
Yeah, the other question I did want to bring up though was when I look at some of these pages and you mentioned how we have the finance department will probably be tasked really with building out all the detail for every single line item, for every project, for everything that's being done. It almost seems like they're now going to be tasked with building out each individual item. I know with capital projects, there's a little bit more work. Generally, there's more detail on there, but how much more data entry is going to be needed to be able to have the level of detail that we're asking for? And that seems to be available.
So I think that's something and that's a good question, because at the end of the day, you don't want to put something on your plate of your team that's gonna, provide more work. And that was a big part of this and how we started. So in the beginning of implementation, a lot of that detailed line item uploads and all that is getting taken care of by our team. So when implementation happens, ClearGov will take your financial data, general ledger, chart of accounts, and onboard all of that into the system for you guys. So then once it's all onboarded, Wendy's going to be able to dive in there and continue to work. If there's anything that needs to be uploaded, we always advise against manually doing it and scheduling actually a ticket with our team. And then ClearGov on our end takes care of that. So in terms of manually doing like adding line items and certain pieces of that sort, we're doing that for you guys. So you don't have to spend time consolidating and configuring data and doing everything from scratch. So the whole idea is to have that data configured for you guys to make Wendy's life and Jacqueline's life and Crystal's life easier at the end of the day. So they're not spending hours configuring data, consolidating information, taking things out of Excel or out of Tyler, putting it into Excel. We want it to all be there for them when they're ready to work on it. One thing I'll say for the capital budget, you mentioned sometimes it's a little bit more intricate. What we provide, and this goes for actually all pieces of the budget, you can actually assign collaborators to work on this as well. So maybe there's certain people who need to give their input or add narrative to parts of the budget. You can have them as a collaborator to kind of streamline the communication and collaboration process of the entire budget. So hopefully that answers parts of those questions. Or all of them, I hope, but.
To follow up, I get it doesn't fully answer it here because it sounds like there's a lot of back end work that ClearGov is technically doing. And from what I understood from the beginning was that you guys have a more or less a direct connection with Tyler so that when changes are made with Tyler, they're transferred over into ClearGov. So essentially the goal is that the Tyler is the input and ClearGov becomes the output. And it's the pretty version of what Tyler should do, but they just don't offer it because, like you said, they're accounting. If all the details aren't put into Tyler, or like we saw on one of the details you showed us, I mean, it showed on a map where this was at and every level of where the project is at. The question is how much of that data has to be input into ClearGov if Tyler doesn't ask for that data and isn't providing that data transferred over to ClearGov. That's where the concern is.
Yep, I see what you're saying. So on the capital project tracking module, essentially whoever is assigned to that project, who is responsible for that project, would have access to keep those updates within that project. So that part of it is not necessarily like a manual piece, because ClearGov does like the automation to show like the percentages and charts and
Right.
graphs and the money allocated. But in terms of like clicking off like, yes, this was done, right? For example, like an action item for the project, click that off, it's going to update all around. And those updates are going to show. So one thing I will say is like, Tyler's not this like, we're working as a complement to Tyler. So what Tyler doesn't have is a way to um, do operating budget, do the capital budget within it without having to use some sort of Excel spreadsheets and manipulating data, because at the end of the day, it's just an accounting system and it's not user friendly for budgeting. So ClearGov is going to be the input. And then that information, once you've budgeted, then Tyler, because Tyler is where all the live data lives. Once you've budgeted, that's where that like file transfer and automated integration comes into play. Because then throughout the year, that data is going to be kept up to date with the integration. So in the beginning, you're doing your budget and all the capital project tracking and all that within ClearGov. So we want to get people out of using Tyler and having to configure data back and forth with Tyler spreadsheets and all that. So to make it user friendly for everybody. So I understand where your question now, and yeah, I didn't really answer it the first time. So I hope that this provides a little bit more clarification as to ClearGov is working as a complement to Tyler. It's not going to be like a double entry thing. It's anything that's done in ClearGov can be pushed back into Tyler, and any live data after the budget is approved for year-to-day actuals and things of that sort can be pushed into will be pushed into ClearGov automatically.
Okay, so I mean, I'm grasping around here a little bit better. I guess the question, the biggest point now
Councilman
is,
Crafton, I'm gonna
Yeah.
have you hold that thought. Councilman Member Johnson, go ahead.
Thank you. I didn't realize we were in a discussion as a whole. Wendy, this question is for you. What is the point of tonight's meeting? Is this a sales meeting for the features of ClearGov, or is this a project plan and a review of where we are with the project moving forward?
This meeting was a result of Councilmember Graham asking to bring ClearGov back to do a demonstration
Okay,
of the
so it's
project.
basically at this point a sales meeting with a potential project down the line with a project review and scope, which would be beat out at a future time. Is that correct?
We're looking to present it at the next meeting.
Okay. So I mean, we could go through all of the detailed
purchase.
design things here, but without having a context of what this meeting and what we're trying to accomplish, you know, I see the questions going so detailed, you know, that I'm not sure that we're really ready for that kind of a discussion. Thank you.
Through the chair to the council, I don't think the intent is ever for the council to design the system. I think this presentation came through, just like any other city software acquisition, the intent is finance will come back. The money was allocated in the budget. It's over 30,000 to acquire the software. Finance will come back with the resolution. Council will
Mhm.
give authorization presumably to purchase the software. And then just like Tyler, anything else, finance will move into the implementation phase and work out all those details.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Great.
Councilman Crafton?
thank you. So back to my question is there additional data that exists to be put into ClearGov that doesn't exist in Tyler? To be able to get it to function on the level that you've described to us?
No. There's not going to be like additional data that needs to get into ClearGov that shouldn't be in Tyler. That's not going to be in Tyler. In terms of like the entire operating expenses and budget and all that, from what Wendy has told me and from how you guys are using Tyler right now, then no, there is not going to be any additional manual entry from Tyler to ClearGov.
Thank
That's
you.
what we're essentially, for all of our customers, avoiding at the end of the day, double entry from Tyler to ClearGov, which is why we see about 65 to 70% of our current customer base using Tyler right now and using ClearGov as a complement alongside.
No more questions? Thank you so much, Wendy. Appreciate you guys. Next, Public Works Director Shaw will present his report.
Good evening, Council. Eric Shaw, Public Works Director. Happy to join you today to give you the summer update. Last time we spoke was, I believe, back in October of last year. So I'm excited to give you some summer updates on what we've been working through. Tonight, we're going to talk about water, sewer, and airport and parks projects. Because Kim Sullivan with the MVP is going to be here tonight with her own presentation, roads will kind of morph through that presentation as we discuss resolution 2646, which was moved up into the Matsu Valley Planning for Transportation presentation. So for water, we have made some significant progress with the Wasilla Palmer Water Interconnect project. I'm going to have some drawings for you in a minute to look at developments within that project. We are currently in construction for the Herman Road water line extension. So if you were to drive up Herman Road right now, you'd see Tutka, the contractor, installing water line, and they've almost made it from Maney south to Tyson Circle or Tyson Street. So that's a significant portion of the work, and so they're doing very well. They have a very tight timeline because those funds are ARPA funds that we received from the borough, and the project must be done by the end of September, and they know that, and so they are doing quite well. They did a lot of preliminary work when we had that rainy week, and that's really paid off for productivity. We're also working on the Herman Road water reservoir design, and that is city funds, but augments the water line that we're installing, so it goes towards the resiliency in Zone 4 that we've worked on. And then some updates on the water master plan, and then I wanted to let you know that we spoke last time about the flushing event that we used the KY Pipe digital water model on for the north side of town. We flushed over by Idita Park. We did a south side flush in the middle of the night right by the old train depot location, right next to KGB. That went very well. And then we decided to test the flow calculations at the hydrant that's at the city road shop, and it did not go well, which led us to investigate, and we found that a valve had been closed at some point back who knows when. And so that system had been underperforming. And so because of that flush, we found an issue with the system. We've remedied that. So wasn't what we intended to find, but it actually provided some improvement to the system. So this first drawing is what we call the North Wasilla Palmer Interconnect route. And so if you remember from the broader picture, there were two routes that are identified first in the initial tech memo that kind of got this project started 5-6 years ago. And then we've been developing it through the larger review and design process. There's a southern route that takes us kind of by Walmart down along the Parks Highway and connects to the Palmer system at the hospital. And then there's a northern route which connects up at Spruce, runs along Spruce and then gets up to Selden, and then runs east to connect to Palmer system. To identify the routing, we've been working with the borough, identifying better routes, prioritizing routes one over another. The original design had shown maybe going up Wasilla Fishhook, which isn't really labeled. Let me see if my cursor will show. This is Wasilla Fishhook here, this slanted line. What we've worked through is more of a north, south, east, west alignment that uses section line easements. And then the goal is to find a capable way of getting up to the Teelan Middle School location, because that is a good anchor tenant. Teelan Middle School could come online for city water in the future. And then it also provides a good location because this area will require another tower, water tank at some point, and there's space there. And so we've been talking to the borough about that relationship in the future. The other thing I want to draw your attention to is down here where it says Lacey Lane Test Well. Lacey Lane is likely within the same aquifer as Spruce, and they are too close in the elevation to Spruce to be pressurized by Spruce. So they're separate, and historically we've had issues with the power going out and there's no backup, and so they lose pressure, and then we have to go into a boil water notice until we test for bacteria, and it takes 3 days, and so the residents are really impacted by pretty regular power outages. We've installed a small backup generator, so that's been remedied in the last few years. But in the idea of always looking for more water sources, we're going to evaluate Lacey Lane's aquifer, and it may be a viable upgrade. And so we would, the design right now is looking at upgrading the Lacey Lane well and then extending that main line, which is what you see here in yellow, back to Spruce. And so Lacey Lane could backfeed to Spruce and be another water source for the rest of the city. And then also not need a new booster station at Spruce, because Spruce can't feed the right pressure to Lacey Lane, but Lacey Lane could easily feed back to Spruce. And so the design expands west to Spruce Reservoir and east to the next section line easement, and then up to Selden and Teeland, like I described. The next project is what we kind of talked about earlier with the Herman Road expansion. What you see in this illustration, the green zone is what we call pressure zone 4. The blue lines are the lines that serve all of those parcels. Some parcels are on their own water, or they don't have water service yet, so they're not green. The yellow on the left is pressure zone 3. And so that's before Richmond Hills Booster Station. Green is after, and that's the only way it gets water right now. The yellow hatched and the orange line are the future extensions of phase 1 of Herman, which we're constructing right now, and phase 2, which takes us from Quiet Circle down to the crossing that exists right now at the Herman Parks intersection. And then at the top, you see some icons. The purpley icon is the new tower or tank, and the yellow one is the well that we drilled that is not a great producer, but is still viable if we needed it for emergency backup. And then you see that there's a future connection to the Whispering Woods neighborhood if that ever needs to connect. And then it's not shown, but there's a stub out for Maney if that's ever connected. So this is showing up as it's related to the interconnect because of the resiliency that it gives zones 4, 5, and 6. And then the next one is going to be new to you, so I wanted to bring your attention to it. This is basically north of us right now. So this is the north of the downtown core. And so you see Iditarod Well, and so that is located behind the police department. So the police department is right where my cursor is. This other property right here is where the new Iditarod School is. So this is the old Iditarod School, the new Iditarod School. Behind the new Iditarod School are these features. It's the Iditarod PRV, which is a pressure reducing valve, and a reservoir that you probably didn't know is back there. It's up behind the sports fields of Wasilla High. That is a bottleneck and an Achilles heel to the Spruce system. All the water that comes out of the Spruce wells and tank must flow down through that PRV, and then that tank serves as a pressure backup for the whole yellow downtown core. That PRV is very old, and it's basically undersized. And so when we make even minor modifications to it, it swings wildly. So one of the things we'll monitor is how much water does it let out, and little changes make major differences, and we can overflow other tanks by not tweaking it just right. So it's risky, it's worrisome when we have really high flows. It is spooky to be nearby because of the velocities through it. So the interconnect research has shown that that's our next point of resiliency that we need to look at. Yes, Mr.
PRV
Johnson.
is pressure relief valve,
Reducing valve.
pressure reducing valve.
Yeah, so the red zone is too high of a pressure to not reduce to serve the yellow zone. So it has to step it down, if you will. It's kind of like a transformer for power. If we didn't have that PRV, then we would have excessively high pressures downtown and people have their spigots blow off, that sort of dangerous thing. So that's all to explain the shortcomings of the old PRV system at the Iditarod tank. And so what we've identified is a good location for a new PRV on Lucille, right at the southern intersection of Elkhorn. And so there's a larger blow up of connecting to an existing line that stops on Lucille and doesn't connect, and then pulling it into a we could either subdivide it and buy the property, or we could get an easement, but there'd be a facility there that is a new PRV that's manageable, like the old Matanuska PRV and the Garden Terrace PRV, with higher capacity, so that we still have the Iditarod PRV, but we don't rely on its outdated and less reliable systems. It also give us the opportunity in the backup to make improvements to the Iditarod PRV, which are required. So as we look at risks and improving resiliency, this proposal involves adding new capacity so that we aren't at risk with losing the Iditarod PRV and then not having our most important water source feed the rest of the city. We've been talking with the property owner. It's the retirement home up there. And so we have gone through the sizing requirements and talked with them about what relationship we'd like to formulate. And so they're mulling that over, and we'll be bringing that to council when we have a proposal that's ready to be reviewed. Any questions on that before I move ahead? Mr. Johnson?
So in the pink area or the red area, whatever you want to call it,
Mhm.
you're really running higher pressure there,
It
correct?
yeah, yes,
Those are residential houses.
they are.
So you can handle what, 35, 40 pounds?
We try to stay under 70 PSI. And so what happens is if so the red area is operating under that pressure. And then if you were to drop down to the new Iditarod school, they'd be too high for that. So that's why we have the PRV, which reduces them back to 40, 45. They stair step down because Spruce is much higher than the rest of the city. One other thing I'll bring your attention to is, if you can see this cursor, there's another connection up here on the corner of town. This section through this neighborhood with the cul-de-sac is actually an undersized pipe. And so HDL is recommending that we bring a real conveyance size pipe, a 12-inch pipe, around the corner. And I forget the name of this street, but it's one of the
Bridgestone.
was that?
Bridgestone.
Bridgestone, thank you. So there's a section of pipe that needs to come around onto Lucille to improve that corridor. Make sure I covered all of them. Okay, and there's one more drawing. So then we've been talking about the northern side of town. This is the southern route. And if you see, the colors have changed slightly. Now we're talking about this green line that would run down the access road along the parks. The blue lines are our existing water line that goes down Fairview Loop. And then I talked about two of our current pressure reducing valves, Old Matt, that's this one on the left, and then Garden Terrace, that's this one on the right. So this blue area is what we call Zone 5. There's very little use in there. There's Joey's Safe Harbor at the very beginning, and then there's this neighborhood right here. I forget that street name. I think it's Horizon or something. So not a lot of use, but it's basically the conduit to get down to the ranch, which is Zone 6. There is still that lack of storage in Zone 5 and Zone 6, which is another resiliency concern. And so we've been identifying where a water tower could go on the properties that are between our existing line and the proposed new alignment on parks. And so what you see is a new pressure Zone 5 reservoir and a booster station. And what that would allow is water to flow in both directions. Whereas, and this is one of the things that we knew about in the very beginning of the interconnect, the Old Matt PRV and the Garden Terrace PRV are one way. So you can't push water uphill through those without significant modifications. They go from one-way valves to two-way valves. And so we can bypass all of that cost and complexity by finding another location, which we've identified on this drawing, having the booster that we need, and then also it lends itself well elevation wise to have another storage tank. And so we've been discussing possible locations with both property owners because it's kind of on a joint property line between one ownership constituency and another ownership constituency. And they're both interested in partnering with us because they want water service, right? It's very valuable for commercial development. And so they're both pretty amenable to see what it means for the value of pursuing that. So you have to kind of vet it first before you go too far with that agreement, but we've figured out that there are some good elevations there. So wanted to bring that to your attention.
Madam Deputy Mayor, just since we're on the topic right here, this is that area where they're clearing a lot of gravel outside the city right now.
That's correct.
What does it look like when we're trying to do something like this so far outside the city?
Procedurally or?
Yeah.
So it's outside the city, but well within our water service boundary.
Mhm.
So it doesn't impact anything really in our relationship. We're allowed to buy, city code allows the city to own properties outside of city limits. And so really it just fits in the exact same relationship we have with purchasing any of the airport properties.
Cool.
Any questions before I move out of water? Happy to go back if any pop up anyway. All right, so on to sewer. So we are almost to 100% design for the septic sludge digester. We've been working through some of the final nuances, making sure we're on a successful trajectory to, have a good design that's considered all of the important features. And with that will come the final cost estimate. And then with that, we'll bring it back to council to talk about our financing options as we balance all of the federal monies we have coming and those timelines and being wise about the city match and making a feasible funding package going forward as we shoot for getting it into the public for bidding this fall. I want to draw your attention to these pictures. This is our new utilities Vector truck. We bought it in the last budget cycle, or maybe 2 budget cycles ago, actually, because it takes forever to get these. This is a very nice, expensive piece of equipment, about $600,000 Vector truck. It's on the smaller side so that it can get around to our customers. We had a certified Vector truck instructor fly up. He's the guy in the yellow vest with the black hard hat, and we had 10 of our public works staff go through it. 6 on water and sewer, 2 from roads and 2 from parks, so that we have cross training and it's useful for all the divisions. This is a picture of them assisting our contractor as we replace a septic tank that had failed and was infiltrating groundwater 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So this is a big win for reducing our sewer load with groundwater that we don't want to treat and we shouldn't have to treat. So they came in and helped sink area drains so the contractor could pump it dry enough to get this tank out. It had worn a hole in it about the size of an egg and was just leaking water constantly. Also exciting news on the permitting side, we received our approval to construct the wetland discharge project. So the DEC is kind of segregated in how they review these projects. We have to submit the plans to an engineering group within DEC, and then we submit our permit request to a different group, and then they kind of talk together and then they move through the approval process. We've already submitted our construction plans and they've reviewed it and said, looks good, you have approval now. And we will be submitting the permit review in a couple weeks. We're verifying the numbers one more time. The reviewers have had the opportunity to review the enormous document that is the wetlands discharge study document, which is 8,000 pages if you include all of the data behind it. They've had a chance to digest at least some of it, and then they will be working with us to have that permit reviewed. When we figure out stipulations by working back and forth with them, they will then give us the I want to get the wording right, the authorization to operate initial preliminary authorization to operate, which means we get started, we build it and we get started, and then we show that it works, and then we get final approval to operate. So it's a multi-step process, and they kind of ease us into it. So that will be moving forward. We're working on a document that will help the council understand where we are in the process, and also be useful as we work with our developers, our constituents that want to add facilities that need more sewer service, to know where we are. So that'll be coming soon, so that we can have a single place to have a cohesive understanding of where we are and where we're going. We're also making really good progress with the legacy tank replacement project. So the plan set is basically done. We're reviewing the specs to make sure that when it goes to bid, the contractors understand the care and attention that each project will take. And so we will have more details forthcoming, but we intend to have that out very soon so that we can get started this fall. I can't commit to having them all done, but we're going to get as many done as we can before the weather doesn't allow it. But we'll have that for the council to review. And then the last thing that I'm very excited about is the sewer master plan mapping. And so what you see is a screenshot of blue, which is our water lines, and green, which is our sewer lines. And I'd be happy to drill down if you want to see it, but it is incredibly detailed. And so we can see each individual component of a sewer system. So HDL had their field crews out surveying in every clean out, every junction box where the power cables go, every pump vault. And now they're taking that data and they're doing the line work back in the office, so that every day the details get more and more specific. And what I see, I don't know where they're working sometimes, because they're kind of bouncing around, but they also have a dashboard that counts all of the different components. And so I see the pump vault count go up and up and up and up and up every day as they fine tune that. And so very soon we'll have a complete count that we can talk about for the number of pump vaults and the number of tanks and the linear miles of sewer main and the linear miles of gravity sewer main and those sorts of things. And then the next step is we will be taking our MaintainX data and marrying it up with this GIS data. And so we will be able to say, in MaintainX, we're talking about this tank, and here's where it's located in the GIS mapping. And then we'll be taking the data that's already in MaintainX, because we scanned all of the paper documents, and fine tuning that data. So this tank is 1,000 gallons, and now we know that in GIS it's 1,000 gallons as well. And so that'll be extremely helpful for running reports on our worst offenders, our worst areas. We know kind of intuitively, and especially my staff knows intuitively where the problems are, but to kind of have a heat map of the failed points and stuff we've never been able to do before. So I'm very excited about that. Any questions before I leave sewer? All right, moving on. Airport. Taxiway Kilo is well under construction. They're doing quite well. They finished their last night work where we had to close the runway from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. For a while. There'll be a little bit more work that they have to do, but it'll be open 24 hours a day again, which will be very helpful for all of our evening pilots that want to fly around. We had talked about in the beginning of the construction season that the frost was so deep that it really delayed them getting started. That's finally worked itself out. The rainy events were kind of problematic too, but they've gotten ahead of that. Water management has been key this whole project. One of the things that we identified a couple weeks ago was that some of the material that was placed, so this whole area was filled when the new aviation road was built. They cut down that hill and they moved it over this side. They were a little bit short-sighted. The contractor put some bad material in areas that we need structural space. So we had to do some extra digging to pull that bad material out. They completed that last night. It was about 2/3 of what we had anticipated. There will be some extra costs to that, but we couldn't leave that material underneath the approach and the taxiway and that sort of thing. But we're under the the expectation. So we had a working estimate of a little over 250,000. We don't think it'll be that much now. It is definitely shared with the FAA. We're using our interim work authorization to keep them moving so that we don't lose the completion date that we need. And we'll be bringing that to the council probably at the next meeting, depends on when they finalize those unit costs. But I want to give you a heads up that there is a little bit of work because of the materials that they found. Land acquisition is progressing. We're in discussions with the parcel 20 owner. They were given the first appraisal. The cost is such that FAA requires us to do a second appraisal. We're already working on that. Our legal team is coordinating with those property owners. So I'll have more to report soon. We had excellent news from the FAA that our 5,100-foot runway extension is now eligible for support by them. They haven't given us the money yet, but they acknowledge that we meet the criteria to be eligible, and we are formulating that next grant application to say, okay, we're ready to do this. We're also working with the Senator Murkowski funding, figuring out where that is within the FAA process so we can marry those two together and make a cohesive project. Some of the council members were in attendance at the environmental analysis public meeting that was held at the Menard. I thought it was very well attended and there were some really great questions. I thought it was a very positive meeting from the comments that I heard from the visitors and the residents. Some of that EA will include impact mitigations. And so one of the questions was, what will you do to mitigate? I'm pulling together some historical background on like what other Alaskan communities have had to do, but Merrill and Ted Stevens have had to do mitigation, and that tends to revolve around reducing sound impacts, and it may involve window retrofits on homes that fall within the maximum allowable decibel count. So just to give the council a heads up on kind of where our consultants have been positively moving with other impacts, it can be to the point of replacing windows. Usually does not require purchasing whole houses, and we're not getting that impression from our models right now that that's required. Back to why we are acquiring other properties, that we have to protect the safety of the runway with the runway safety area, and so that's usually why we're acquiring properties. And then we're also still working on the airport rate increase. That's something that needs to happen based on the financial review and the FAA and just market pressures. It's time. Some exciting developments. This is a really interesting airplane that I wanted to bring to your attention. This is a company called Excalibur. They're a mapping company, but they have sensors in that Stinger and a whole bunch of electronics in that plane. It flies around and looks for magnetic abnormalities, which probably lead to oil and gas and minerals. They're a little, they don't say who their client is, but they're flying around doing sensor scans with it. So it's pretty interesting. And this is the exact plane, that size of plane that bolsters the need for the 5,100-foot runway. So we're really excited to find a spot for them, and they've been active all summer. And then we may have a small corporate jet that will come in right after this crew is done for the summer and be here for a week or two. So it's been really neat to see Wasilla become an alternative for visitors, and it's paying off with a lot of different activities. And the last slide on that is this is our 1200 Aero tracking system, and so I just want to bring your attention. This is the number of flights that we've tracked landing and taking off since January. It came online the second week of January, and you can see that we have over 17,000 operations. So we're a busy airport. We're the training hub. People drive to Merrill Field to fly back to Wasilla to train, to then fly back to Merrill Field to drive home. And now that we have some local schools, we have a lot more homegrown pilots just driving straight to Wasilla to fly. And the tracking is really interesting because it also helps us correlate between weather events. So in the center graph, it's weather conditions. And when you see a gray spike, that typically means bad weather. So maybe low visibility. You can see that it talks about wind speeds as well. And then average temperature, the red means it's usually warm and sunny. And so there's a noticeable dip every time the weather gets bad, operations slow or stall. And then the bottom graph, just in case you're interested, looks at the health of the receiver. And so there's a couple spots where power went out and it went blank, but it comes back on. So lots of data to parse through. Any questions before we leave the airport? All right, the last one I want to talk about was the parks. So the master plan RFP for parks is going to be out on the street next week, I believe. So that'll garner consultant interest, and so we're excited to get that rolling. And it'll be a very public facing public comment process. And then I want to draw your attention to the work that the parks crew did this spring with adding sand to the beach. Worked out great. They actually dumped it in piles, let the kids play with it for a few weeks, and then we helped them out and spread it smooth with the Bobcat after that. And then in the upper left is the new bathrooms at the Bumpus softball fields. They are getting their power connection finally this week. They were on site today. MEA was very, very behind, and we've been waiting and waiting and waiting. And we're cautiously optimistic that it'll be up and operational for softball's final tournament this weekend. So they've been exceedingly patient as we have not been able to get MEA out there. I believe that ends my slides. One thing I wanted to touch on that we discussed a little bit was I didn't include roads because we knew we'd be talking about the MPO. And then also I didn't have any update on paving because they hadn't started yet. Well, they have hit the ground running, and so they're probably done with Riley's paving tonight. They had been grading it over the weekend, and last I heard they had finished one whole length of it and they were setting back. You're going to see an apron that goes into the Lucille Park a little bit. We're trying to prevent all the gravel tracking that happens. And so we're going to have to balance quantities on that. So, but we're trying to make a good stopping point as we still have to go back into the park and use the other funding that we have for the dog park paving. We're picking a good joint to come back, and there's some grading we need to do to the dog park, which is why it hasn't started yet. We need to get a good design on that. And then we're going to talk more about those projects once we hear from Kim Solian. Can I answer any other questions?
Councilman Crafton?
Thank you. I will say I was just at the lake the other day here, and it was very nice not have to worry about falling off a cliff there anymore. Going back to water real quick, just since we talked about quite a few different projects, I know we're in the thick of a master planning on that one. How do some of these projects coordinate with the master plan of where we're at? Is that where we got some of the ideas? How do those play together?
I don't have a good, oh yeah, there we go. Yeah, great question. In all reality, the interconnect project has kind of front loaded the master plan. So we've been focusing on resiliency and where our system was weak. What will happen with the master plan is we'll be able to come up with a couple new data points. We'll be able to start to forecast the life cycle expectancy. Where do we need to start going back and addressing existing infrastructure that's not meeting the needs just because of its age? And then also having a better plan for how to manage growth, right? So if the interconnect proves that we have enough capacity, then we would know, because of the forecasting, we would know that we don't need to go out and find more water sources. But we won't know that until we have the modeling. Basically what we'll do is look at the possible developable area in the city and then put a water value to it, and then say, okay, if we start to continue to see infill inside city limits on the system, how much more pressure will we see? And when I say pressure, I mean demand, where we can't meet what another entity needs. And so those kinds of forecasts are important, much like you would forecast traffic loads and then plan for new roads. We need to forecast water usage and plan for more services. There's also gonna be a component of, in the same way we need to plan for our pipes to age out where they need to be replaced. We already have facilities like the Bumpus Booster Station, which is functionally obsolete, can't get parts for it. We need to turn around and have a replacement plan for that before it fails. So those are some of the high level things that will happen. The master plan also will get very futuristic, if you will, and say, what if we head way out west? What if we head way out north? Those sorts of things. There'll be that component of 20 years from now, where might growth demand a new main line? And then kind of add some cost to that. The other thing that'll come out of it is, every year we are trying to leverage our relationship with our representatives federally and in the state. And they can manage funding requests. And so we'll say, could you give us 10 million? And we'd say, this is the project we do for 10 million. And they come back and they say, no, we can only do 5. Well, we need to be ready to say, oh, if you can only do 5, then we can get this one done. And it's been cumbersome because those requests come in so fast. If you haven't been able to front load kind of different size projects, then you're hoping that you can make a feasible project when it went from a 10 million ask to a 5 million ask. And so we want to pre-plan those different size projects so that we can leverage as much funds coming back without, having half the funding for a project and then can't spend it in time. Those sorts of issues.
Thank you. I appreciate you stating my case for why master planning is so important.
It is.
Again.
It's always cheaper.
And then second question, I'm just going to beat this because we're already 2 months into the fiscal year. Uniworth or Waterworth? I always mix up the two.
Either Waterworth, yeah.
Waterworth.
Yep.
When are we hoping to see them come back and have a conversation?
That's a great question. So I've been working with Wendy to figure out kind of how we want to structure that. We've talked about having a work session. I don't have a date yet, but it's important to us. One of the things that we have been working through is with Tyler, of course. We've taken all of our accounts and put them into Tyler. We're still figuring out how to get back in and get into those CIPs, in all honesty. They're new codes. We've got to kind of move it into the legislative review that you see. So we bring those financial documents and say, we've got this account. We're asking to have this contract. That's taking a little bit of time. And so I have some projects that I need to bring to council once I know what my actual codes are so that we can get moving and make those POs. So.
Thank you. At least I haven't forgotten about it.
No, definitely not. Any other questions?
I think so. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next presentation will be a report on the Planning Commission from Acting City Planner Nygaard.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The Planning Commission did meet on the 28th of July. There was no legislative recommendations or actions, but we did have 2 quasi judicial hearings that night. We had one for CUP 2603. That's the Denali Family Services at 600 North Lucille. That's a 21,700 square foot outpatient youth behavioral health facility. And that was approved by the Planning Commission. We also had CU 2604. That was for the Valley Country Store. That was for 1451, 1450, and 1400 West Nicola Avenue. And that will be 11,144 square foot convenience store and gas station. Tomorrow night, we will have a Planning Commission meeting where that legislation to approve the findings in the permit will be put before the commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal. Our next presentation is by Matsu Valley Planning for Transportation.
Madam Deputy Mayor, could we take a 5-minute recess before we dive into this big one?
No. Yes. We'll be back at 7:38. and move to persons to be heard right now. Are we okay with that? No objection? Okay. So we will skip down. We are now at persons to be heard. This is a time for members of the public to share their views with the council. Please note that this is not a question and answer period. Speakers may be referred to administration and items raised may be taken under advisement. Please begin your testimony by stating your first and last name. And if you are a city resident, comments are limited to 3 minutes. I apologize if I slaughter anyone's last name on here. First one is Noah Irby. Yes. Again, if you would just start your testimony by your first and last name, if you are a city resident.
Yes, my name is Noah Irby. I am a city resident. Mayor and members of the council, I'd like to bring forth a matter of urgency for public safety and decency within our community. I'm here tonight to ask a pretty simple question. When a property owner repeatedly ignores city violations, when does the city actually act? I'm speaking about the property at 146 East Aspen Avenue. On August 4th, law enforcement executed a major narcotic search warrant connected to this property. 49 people were contacted and detained during the operation. Multiple arrests were made and approximately 9.29 grams of fentanyl were seized. Using the DEA's benchmark of 2 milligrams as a potentially lethal dose, that is more than 4,600 potentially lethal doses of fentanyl, which is close to half the population inside city limits. That's not an abstract statistic. These are drugs that hurt our families, our neighbors, and our community. This is a de facto trap house inside city limits, and this property did not suddenly become a problem last week. The city has reportedly been dealing with violations here for years. There are junk and dismantled vehicles, piles of debris and tires, apparent automotive or salvage activity, and other longstanding nuisance conditions, including human sewage waste dumping. Clearly, the drug activity has been known for a while too. If law enforcement was able to execute a multi-agency warrant, and just speaking with residents around town, it seems to be kind of common knowledge what's going on at that house. I spoke with city code compliance, and my understanding is that numerous violations have already been issued, and I do appreciate those efforts, but frankly, it's not enough. If the owner can simply ignore violation after violation, what happens next? Because Wacilla's code does provide additional tools. The city has mechanisms for enforcement orders, citations, nuisance abatement, recovery of cleanup costs, and other legal actions. So my concern isn't that the city lacks options. My question is, why haven't we escalated to them? Is it the cost? What about the cost of fentanyl in our community, our law enforcement response, or the strain on our hospital or healthcare systems? I understand that government has to respect due process and private property rights, and I support that. I also understand that there are private efforts to address the situation, and those are appreciated, but the government shouldn't automatically shift its enforcement burden to private homeowners. These cannot supersede city efforts, and the city needs to have enforcement action of its own merit. This has escalated too far when that much fentanyl is involved. So I want to know, why haven't liens been assessed by the city? Why haven't foreclosure proceedings already started? I understand due process cannot mean an endless process where nothing ever changes. People who follow the rules shouldn't have to live next to a property that can disregard them indefinitely. And I don't think this should be partisan, controversial, or complicated. We all want safe neighborhoods. We all want our laws to mean something, and none of us want fentanyl being distributed in our community. I'm asking the council and the administration to make this property an immediate priority. Use every lawful tool available to permanently address the nuisance. There may be legal and procedural barriers, but respectfully, it's your job to change them. Those barriers should determine how the city acts and not whether the city acts. Thank you.
Thank you. Nancy Rassick? Close, okay. I'm sorry.
Raycheck. And they say Raycheck.
Okay. I told you.
Okay. I am Nancy Raycheck and I am a citizen or resident of the city. Okay, I think you got a packet, did you not? It has all this stuff. Okay, so I'll kind of just go through it to elaborate a little bit. My question that I would like answered is, why is this stuff permissible in the residential areas? Okay. This is our house, which is a nice house, and it was in a nice neighborhood until this truck appeared. And as it turns out, I thought, well, that can't be permissible in a residential area in the city limits. And so I went to the codes, and that's there too. Let's see here if I can separate it out. Okay, and so this is a poster child for a junk vehicle. And these are all the things, the pictures here, that make it a junk vehicle as described. Okay, so I thought, okay, that's not gonna be a problem. I'll just call code compliance and they will come out and give them a citation. Well, that's not quite true, because if you go to this page right here from number 2, it says 3 or more of these are allowed on city property. So this thing, these people could have 3 of these on the property that is butted right up against us. That you see there, that's our property line. So it's like, well, that can't be, but it is. And then to add insult to injury, this thing appears next to us. It's on the street and it's their garbage can. It doesn't leave. It's there all the time and they use it as a garbage can. So there's so many reasons why this should not be allowed in the city property. I mean, in the city limit. Oh, okay, anyway, so my issue is that it affects property values. There's 2 houses across the street from us. They're listed for $750,000. Now, who is going to want to invest that kind of money with this kind of stuff? So I want the city to make these things illegal. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Mark Dinkle?
How do you say my last name?
Yeah. That one I know how to say.
Hello, Mark Dinkel. I'm the Executive Director of Grizzly Family Fitness on the Palmer-Wasilla Highway. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I was recently invited by Scott Bell at Menard to speak to consultants about Menard expansion. The consultant said the council is concerned possibly about competing with private business, and which I'm glad to hear. Grizzly has served the Matsu Valley for 19 years. It exists only because Scott and Karis Johannes invested millions of dollars to build an impact community for the community they love, with no intention of ever profiting from it. And for many years, they personally covered the operating expenses, and it's only been the last 10 years that Grizzly has paid its own way. But it's barely. The estimates are that we're about $1 million behind in needed improvements inside the facility. And since Grizzly is falling further and further behind, it recently transitioned to nonprofit status to possibly save the facility from closing and being turned into a warehouse. So although you are concerned with Menard competing with private business, the reality is government facilities already compete with private businesses like Grizzly. When the Menard offers similar services at subsidized rates, that misleadingly shapes public perception about what the cost of those recreational services cost. For example, Grizzly is oftentimes dinged by the community because Menard's track prices are far below market value. And so we hear that also from Palmer Event Center, Burro Gym, and other government facilities in the area. And I doubt restaurant owners would be happy if the city would still open up a restaurant and started selling $1 gourmet cheeseburgers. It would be the same problem. So government facilities can operate in the red, whereas places like Grizzly, we have no option. We have to stay in the black. So these non-governmental facilities have options that places like Grizzly doesn't. I know parts of the community say we need more recreational facilities. I actually agree. I agree with that, but it's at the expense of private business a lot of times when government builds buildings, because it's opposed to what we do. So I invite you, I would say there's unintended consequences of expanding, and that's sometimes you think, oh, we'll have more space and there'll be more for the community. But if it forces facilities to close, then you might even end up with less space, and now the government controls it. And so I really do thank you for your time. I would invite you to contact me. You know where I'm at. Love to show you the facility and talk about the challenges of running a huge recreational facility. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Have a good day.
Kim Kalmbach?
Good evening, members of the city council. I am not a city resident, but I am a city ratepayer. And I am here to commend and thank you for seeing the need to review and redesign the utility rates. I brought up many of the concerns you're addressing now during the Repright administration. I'll explain my concerns at the time, and I do have some suggestions. We talk about costs. We have fixed costs, which is the infrastructure, variable costs, which is the flow, but there is an additional economic cost concept of marginal cost. That's the cost of adding one more unit to the system. For example, when Home Depot hooked up to Wacilla's system, major upgrades were needed to the water supply. The city of Wasilla gained by this new business through sales tax proceeds. However, the cost of this upgrade was borne by the customers of the utility because enterprise funds are self-supporting. I know, in theory. My first suggestion is that in your utility rate design, you consider impact fees. These are the upfront costs collected by the utility fund to compensate for the impact of the added customer to the utility, and or consider directing a portion of sales tax revenues from this new customer directly to the utility fund to compensate the fund for that new customer's cost to the system. This would be a deliberate amount and not using sales tax to fill a deficit. And there's all kinds of different combinations there you could do. My final suggestion is for the council to consider a utility advisory board. Fill it with experts similar to the borough's Board of Equalization. Maybe they meet once or twice a year to consider rates, growth plans, anything else the council could ask them for assistance with. Finally, I know that the sewer system's a really expensive system. I was on the City of Wasilla Planning Commission at the time the decision was made to put it in. And the city had no money. And the whole system was paid for by EPA grant, and they needed to protect the lakes. So, but, you know, I know it can be, there, I've heard a contractor say there are areas in the city that where gravity feed can be installed. So thank you, Eric, for doing the rates. That's it.
Thank you. Okay, we will bounce back up. Our next presentation is by the Mat-Su Valley Planning for Transportation. All right.
Well, good evening, Deputy Mayor Rubio and members of the Wasilla City Council. My name is Kim Solian. I'm the Executive Director of Mat-Su Valley Planning for Transportation, and I am excited to be here tonight to talk about some of the work that we've been doing and talk about some of the projects that the city has applied for that hopefully we are going to be able to fund. So I'm going to just hit a little highlight of who we are and what we do and why we exist, and then get into the process of the development of our long-range plan, and then eventually our short-range plan, which is our KIT. Let's see, which one? So MVP, our Mat-Su Valley Planning for Transportation, is a metropolitan planning organization. We are a federally required, federally funded transportation planning and policy-making organization. We're one of 459 MPOs across the state. Across the country, and we're the third MPO in Alaska. There is one in Fairbanks, and there is also one in Anchorage. MPOs are required to form once a community reaches a population threshold of over 50,000 people in a certain area. And so when the 2020 census was certified, there was a requirement that we were to be formed, and in order to allow federal funding to come into our community. So if we didn't exist, all federal transportation dollars would not be able to flow into the core area of the Mat-Su. So we formally organize as a nonprofit corporation. We say our birthday was Valentine's Day 2024 because that's when we opened a bank account. We are governed by a 7-member policy board. Mayor Ledford serves as the Wasilla representative on our policy board. That is our governance board. They make all the decisions for the organization. We also have a 16-member technical committee. Eric Shaw, your public works director, serves on our technical committee. They're the workhorses of the organization. They work closely with staff on all our planning initiatives. And we have 4 professional staff. We finally this year in May hired our final staff person, so we're fully staffed up, and we opened an office in downtown Palmer if you ever want to come for an in-person visit and ask questions. So as a planning organization, we're required to do 4 specific plans, and then we are allowed to do other plans. The main plan we're required to complete is a metropolitan transportation plan. So it's a long-range transportation plan that identifies projects that the community will need in the current time frame and over the next 25 years. And so a lot of steps went into the plan. We're in the home stretch, hoping to have that plan approved in December. With this plan, we have to program, or we get to program, about $10 million a year to be used by the local municipalities on transportation projects. Prior to our existence, the DOT would work on projects wherever they felt were necessary. Now we get a say in where those projects happen with for us in the region, both with the money that we receive as an MPO to transmit to the local municipalities, but we also get a say in those projects that the DOT might be doing in our region as well. So I was here back in January, and I let you know I think it was January, we were about to launch our call for projects. We put together with the policy board and technical committee an application process after we'd identified the goals and objectives for the plan, which also came after we looked at existing conditions. Where are all the transportation issues within our greater core area? Where is there congestion, safety issues, connectivity issues, multimodal breaks in the multimodal system, or needs for the transit operators to better serve the community. Once we put that nomination package together, we did a call for projects. That was open for about 30 days. We received all the projects. Those were scored and evaluated based on evaluation criteria that we came up with the technical committee and policy board based on the goals we want to achieve with the projects that we fund. And in July, our policy board approved the final MTP project list. And now we're going to start working on our TIP, and I'll talk about that in a second. And we're hoping to adopt this plan or approve this plan in December. It is a federal requirement that once an MPO is formed, they have 4 years to complete their first long-range transportation plan. And if they do not, there's a possibility that it will pause federal funding from coming into the region. So if we don't finish the plan by December, we might miss the 27 construction season. As I mentioned before, projects that were nominated, the city of Wasilla nominated 11 projects, and those projects were scored against projects that the city of Palmer submitted. I think they submitted 4, and the Matzo Borough, I believe, submitted 74 projects. All the projects were scored on a range of evaluation criteria, looking at is the project going to support connecting to where people live, to where they work? Is it going to improve safety for all modes, including walkers and bikers and people driving cars or using public transit and or freight? Does it leverage other funding? Does it support maintaining what we have instead of building new? Does it enhance the multimodal network? And did it have public support? We also launched a public comment map and a public survey inviting the public to let us know where they saw pinch points, where there were congestion areas, where there were safety areas, and just to identify projects that they would like to see. So all the projects that were applied for got scored and ranked based on that criteria, and then we had a prioritized list from 1 to 74. So once we had that list, we needed to break the projects into short-term, mid-term, and long-term, because one of the requirements the federal government puts on us is that our plan must be fiscally constrained, which means we cannot program more projects into our long-range plan than we will receive funding for on an annual basis. So the short-range project list is a 4-year time band that matches our tip time band, and then there's a medium range, which is 10 years, a long range, which is another 10 years, and then illustrative. Based on the planning level cost estimates that each project received, we had to draw a line. We will receive about $250 million over the next 25 years. And so that was kind of our line. And any project that, based on scoring, didn't fit in these time bands, then moved into illustrative. What that means is that if other funding were to come available, for instance, if the city of Wasilla applied for a grant, they would be able to, if they wanted to, pluck a project off the illustrative list and move it into our tip. So not only do we have to, in our MTP, identify all the projects that the cities would like, as well as the Mat-Su Borough. We have to keep track of all the federal grants that are going to be focused on transportation projects that any municipality is receiving, but we're also documenting all those DOT projects as well. So with the gift that the federal government gives us of being able to provide most of the money for projects, there is a requirement for a 9.03 non-federal match with each of those projects. So here is, I know it's tiny for those in the audience, but this is how the project list shook out based on the priority scoring and ranking process. You can see that the city of Wasilla's projects are in orange. Palmer are shaded in green, and the white projects are the Mat-Su Borough. So you have 4 projects going forward in our short-term tip if you choose to pass the resolution tonight that we'll talk about in a second. In addition to your improvement program projects, which are 2 repaving projects that the city did submit as well. The one thing I'll flag is that the numbering system on the projects, they do correspond with the score in our evaluation process. And once we had the prioritized list and the cost estimates, our technical committee and policy board was allowed to move some of the projects between time bands based on local priorities that might not have been reflected in the scoring criteria. So now that we have our approved MTP project list, we as an organization have started building our TIP. That's our Transportation Improvement Program, and it corresponds with the short-term project list. So these are the projects that we are proposing to program for federal funding in our TIP. It is federally required that a project to receive federal funding would need to be on our TIP. The MTP and project list and TIP need to match for that short-term time band. We will probably amend the TIP annually. Once projects are approved in the TIP and our TIP gets approved by federal highways, the DOT will do scope, schedule, and estimates for all of those projects, and we might have to shift cost estimates based on that and timelines. The TIP also has to be fiscally constrained, but by what we think we'll receive over the next 4 years. And again, the projects are drawn directly from the MTP. So it's the MTP is the high level vision and priorities, full 25-year project list, and the TIP is what we're going to go forward with in the short term and fund. So again, I'll just hit some of the highlights. We finalized our MTP project list in June. Or finalized the list internally, and the policy board and technical committee approved that, and we started the process of developing our TIP. So I've been making the rounds, visiting the city council in Palmer and the assembly, asking them for resolutions, because we will need a resolution of support documenting those projects that the councils and the assembly want to nominate for our TIP. Our MTP is in draft form right now. We expect it to go out for a 30-day public comment in October. In September, we'll be drafting our TIP, assuming we receive all the resolutions from the councils and the borough. That will be approved for public comment in October by our policy board and technical committee, out for public comment in November, and then both documents will move forward for approval by our policy board in December, and then submitted to federal highways for approval. So again, I've mentioned it before, one of the things that we need in order to feel comfortable to program our TIP, which is basically our agreement that these are the priority projects for the local municipalities. We need a resolution of support nominating those projects. any project on the full MTP list is eligible, but we're encouraging the assembly and the cities to nominate the short-term project list and the improvement program projects in their resolution. But of course, that you could change that. If you do it tonight, approve the resolution that is in your packet, that means all of those projects that you nominate will be eligible to be programmed in our TIP, and that will give us the green light to move forward to program that TIP. And hopefully move it forward for approval in December. The other thing the resolution does is it does commit you, knowing we don't have full construction estimates, but we have planning level cost estimates. It does commit you to providing that non-federal share or that 9.03% match. So I think in total in the short-term list, it's about $14 million in projects in the short-term list and maybe $2 million in the improvement program that you would be responsible for paying that match for. And that is documented in the resolution in your packet tonight. And with that, I thank you for letting me come. I'm happy to answer any questions about our organizational process. We operate a lot like a foundation, like we are the stewards of the federal funding. We build the container and the process to allow the cities and the borough to apply for projects. We share with the public what's happening, give them an opportunity to weigh in. We evaluate the system to make sure we know where the needs are, but really your staff are the experts of the projects that they applied for. So if you have specific questions about projects, I would, encourage you to, ask Eric those questions. And I do want to give Eric a little bit of a shout out. Like, he is such an amazing public works director. I am so impressed, like, hearing his presentation tonight and all that he's involved with, and is always so calm and so humble and so thoughtful. Like, it's been a pleasure to work with him. The city did submit, of all the projects that were submitted to us through this process, the City of Wasilla's projects were the most comprehensive, the most well-written, the most thoughtful, and it made our jobs really easy to score them because we had all the information we needed to evaluate those projects. I just want to give Eric a little shout out for that and his leadership. And I will pause there and answer any questions that I can and go from there.
Councilmember Graham.
Thanks. I did have one question here on your long range 2050 draft project list. It talks about project ID 21 Riley Drive paving and pedestrian parkway. We've been working on Riley Drive for years and years and years, and I think earlier today Eric just told me that they're finishing paving on Riley Drive today or tomorrow. Could you maybe fill me in on why that's on a 5-year project list if we're finishing this week?
Through the mayor, great question. So as Kim explained, the nomination process was months and months ago. Riley had not been approved in the budget for the this current round of paving. And so that project would morph into just the pedestrian trail on the side of Riley. So that was a joint project with adding a pedestrian trail the whole way and finishing Riley if it wasn't done. But because things were reprioritized in the last months, it's being finished today. So,
and since that project involved money for paving Riley and for adding the pedestrian access or pedestrian pathway there, what happens to that money that the city has already spent on paving Riley? Is it going to come back to projects that the city is nominated, or is it going to go back into the big pool for the whole Mat-Su Borough?
Through Deputy Mayor Rubio to Councilmember Graham, that is a great question. So the money that we receive on an annual basis is for the whole urban area. So there isn't a specific allocation for the city of Wasilla or the Mat-Su Borough or the city of Palmer. So if this project, well, one thing I'll say is we are allowed to update our MTP and our TIP as needed, and we have a process to go through that. So if your project changes because you were able to complete a component, we would then, during our MTP, and I think we'll probably update the MTP via amendment early next year, we would rerun the fiscal constraint tables, your project would then have a lower cost value. And it likely would move higher up in the list. I don't know if it would move all the way to short term and we could fund that pedestrian facility in the short term, or it would be in the medium term. But if you paid for it with city funding, it then wouldn't get swapped out necessarily and one for one with federal funding to go to another project. But we could potentially complete the pathway sooner, since it would be a smaller project.
Thank you.
Madam Deputy Mayor.
Councilmember Crafton?
Thank you. Looking through some of these, I think 2 different ones were tagged with no platted right of way. How do those pan out, especially considering one of them is on the short-term list, specifically 19 Seward Meridian Parkway to Sun Mountain project?
Through the mayor, I can talk to the project, but I think Mr. Crafton's question is structurally how it fits within the short range planning.
I'm not sure how to, I don't have the full project description in front of me. What I can say is that project scoring a 19 out of the 87, I think, total projects that were received means it was a higher scoring project based on all of the criteria. The fact that it doesn't have platted right away would mean to me that the DOT has to help figure out how to navigate the right of way issues. So that project might take a little longer if we don't have willing landowners to support that. But
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. So that would be a more in-depth project than our #1 project, which is Nelson, and it's all in our right of way.
Yeah, I mean, I see we got the #1 project, which is great. I mean, that's an area that I know is kind of awkward to traverse for walkers, bikers, et cetera, that type of stuff. But I mean, just look, I guess, did we not take into consideration, or was that not taken into consideration when you did those types of projects? Because I mean, to me, that would push the scoring of that project back, knowing.
So
I mean, I assume this is the end of Sun Mountain where it meets King's Chapel, and you're gonna have to find. I mean, there's only one way around it, actually. So
yeah, so actually, there's a couple avenues it could go. The scoring criteria looks heavily at safety, and Alpine is so dangerous. The number of crashes there, it elevates it quite high. Even though you're right, the process of finding right of way, going through that work is laborious. That it is so dangerous that it overwhelmed it and still brought it up into the top quartile.
Okay, so that's more the question of how did we get to that, knowing that you basically have to traverse that type of project. It's an interesting one to tackle. So okay,
Would you like me to talk about the projects that we nominated, just kind of in general?
No, I mean, it's
Okay,
fine for
all
right now. Thank you.
No further questions? Thank you.
thank you.
We are now at the consent agenda.
Resolution.
Okay. So we are now at new business. Madam Clerk, please read the item by title.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. That is a resolution of the Wasilla City Council approving priority transportation projects for the nomination to the Mat-Su Valley Planning for Transportation MVP 2027 through 2030 Transportation Improvement Program, affirming the city's commitment to provide the required non-federal share for projects selected for federal funding and authorizing their submittal to the MVP.
Is there a motion to adopt resolution serial number 26-46?
Madam Deputy Mayor, I move to adopt resolution serial number 2646.
Is there a second?
Madam Deputy Mayor, I'll second the motion.
It has been moved by Councilmember Cottle and seconded by Councilmember Crafton to adopt resolution serial number 26-46. Is there discussion? Councilmember Graham?
Thank you. So what is the timeline required for approval of this project list? If we don't approve it tonight, what timeline are we on? I mean, do we need to have this done by a certain time? I mean, the budget needs to be done by a certain date. What about this project list?
Kim Sullivan, MVP Executive Director, through Deputy Mayor Rubio to Councilmember Graham. We really need it by September. So you do have a couple more weeks if you wanted to take some time with the resolution. But in order to stay on our timeline to complete the tip and have it be out for public comment in November, we need it by September because it'll take us most of September and October to draft it.
Thank you.
Councilmember Crafton?
Thank you. I have a couple concerns with this. I appreciate Mr. Graham bringing up the question of what the timeline looks like. Part of me is concerned with the fact that we're committing ourselves pretty early on by saying that we are going to commit the funds to these projects here. And at the end of the day, it's not really in any particular order, especially knowing what I just asked on Project 19 there. A project could get pushed down based on what the property owner chooses to do. But I mean, the overall portion of part of this too is we just approved a roads master plan. And so how does that play into what we're going to do? Because I've already seen it where we've had the planning commission approve buildings go in place where the roads master plan told us to do other things. So it's how does this play into that project there? I feel like
Through the mayor. So the roads master plan would definitely augment the internal planning for the city of Wasilla. So the MPO was created because the census meant we were urban and the feds came in and said, you have to do this. Wasilla did not waste the opportunity to be part of it. And so we've had the leadership through the mayor and myself on the technical committee to learn how the MPO works. And what's been happening with the funding is we have these initial projects that get started. So you might remember that we talked about how some of the initial funds came to the MPO to do surveys. So we're going to have a PCI survey, the condition of our roads, and then a street light, and then a sign survey. Those are because those projects are useful and there was no structure to get any of the bigger planning stuff done as the project stood up. Then we've talked about Lucille and Peck repaving. Those were eligible because there are roads and they're obviously in poor shape and it's easy for DOT to make them a priority. And now we're into the tip process where we had to nominate and had to be reviewed. So we're going to be able to be even more effective and have even more preemptive planning through the roads master plan. And we'll have a consultant, basically, they'll be an additional advocate for us as we get more and more adept at understanding how we can manage our role in the MPO to get those things that the city of Wasilla wants to see. But it is a learning opportunity. And so these first 4 projects are, actually quite impressive that we ranked so high. We knew what the scoring was going to be. I was handpicking projects that would make major improvements. So the Sun Mountain connection, incredibly important, relying on, unfortunately, tons of crash data, hurt and killed people at Alpine. The other project that we haven't talked about is the Lucille connection, which has the possibility of removing a whole railroad crossing, improving safety and year-round access for that neighborhood. And then we have the pedestrian connections, which ranked so high because of the way the scoring is based on multi-users. So we tried to have a balance. You see that we fall in all 3 categories, but we can definitely, as we go through the future with the master plan being created, the roads master plan, a consultant on board helping us drill down even more into the future improvements that the city wants to see. It'll just get refined more and more. So I think this is a good balance for short and long-term projects. It brings a bunch of federal funding back to the city that, had only been in the purview of the DOT until the MPO was created. And I think that we will start to see kind of a balanced approach. The bigger projects are going to take longer, but we're not just going to be waiting for years. We'll have some initial projects like those sidewalk connections that will really make an impact quickly for the public.
Is there further discussion? Hearing none, is council ready to vote?
Madam Deputy Mayor,
Councilmember Crafton.
I'd like to move that we postpone this to the next regular meeting scheduled August 24th.
Is there a second?
Graham seconds.
Is there further discussion on the postponement?
I speak to my motion.
Councilmember Crafton.
Thank you. I'd just like to sit on this one and look it over a little bit more. I feel like I'd have some more questions for Eric, but I'd like to look this project over a little bit more. I mean, it's a big step. We're committing to a lot, and I mean, I get it. This is going to change every few years, and we've got a roads master plan coming, but I'd like to look this over before we make a final decision on this.
Further discussion? Is there objection? Postpone it to August 24th. Now we're going backwards. We are now at consent agenda. Madam Clerk, please read the items for approval under the consent agenda by title.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. We have the special meeting minutes, June 15th, 2026, regular meeting minutes, June 22nd, 2026, regular meeting minutes, July 13th, 2026, and regular meeting minutes, July 27th, 2026. We have one resolution for approval, resolution serial number 2643, confirming the appointment of election officials to serve at the October 6th, 2026 regular city election, and if required, a runoff election anticipated to be held on November 10th, 2026. And that's it.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as read?
So moved by Councilman Johnson.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
It has been moved by Councilmember Johnson and seconded by Councilmember Crafton to approve the consent agenda as read. Is there any objection to the motion? Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved. There is no unfinished business. We are now at communications. Madam Clerk, please read the items by title.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. 3 sets of meeting minutes, commission meeting minutes, planning commission meeting, May 12th, 2026, May 26th, 2026, and June 9th, 2026.
We are now at audience comments, which is a time for members of the public to share their views with the council. This is not a question and answer period or a time for dialogue. Speakers may be referred to administration, or issues raised may be taken under advisement by the council or administration. Please begin your testimony by stating your first and last name, and if you are a city resident, comments are limited to 3 minutes.
Good evening, Council, Deputy Mayor. My name is Jeannie Trushinsky. I'm president of the Friends of Westella Library. I was in a meeting in Sutton. I was worried you were going to be all shut down and at home, but thanks for all the work you do. It just never ends, does it? It goes on and on. So we got a few things at the library. Our big sale in September, we always do a 3-day sale. And so that will start actually on 9/11. So it'll be Friday, Saturday, and Monday. We actually end up storing a lot of the books that we get donated off-site at our off-site storage sheds because we get so many books donated throughout the year. We are having Lisa Roderick, who wrote Place Among Giants. It's about her work at the base camp of Denali for 22 years. It's a really remarkable story about this woman from Talkeetna. She's going to be at the library on September 15th at 5:30, and she has a slideshow to talk about her book and her time there at the base camp. So everybody's welcome to come to that. I really want to come tonight because we're starting our new Art for Seniors. This will be, we've completed 7 classes for seniors at the Westella Library. And this past spring, we had classes at 4 other libraries. We're actually going to have classes at 8 locations this time. And one of the ones I'm most excited about is we're going to do a class, joint class with seniors and the kids at my house. And we're going to be creating some artwork for their new building. And so I'm really excited about that. This work has been made possible through a grant from the Matsu Health Foundation. And we actually just got to meet the one of the directors of the McPhee, or probably not saying that right, foundation that funded this grant. And it's just been so positive to have these seniors have an opportunity to connect, to learn a new skill, and to really make some new friends, which has been really, really important to people. And so 8 locations, the classes will be announced tomorrow. Registration opens at high noon on the 12th, Wednesday at noon. People torture me everywhere. What's the next class? When do they open? Yeah, we can't seem to get enough space, but it's exciting to have it happening throughout the valley. And we really appreciate the work that the Wasilla Library staff does to help us be able to offer these classes there that we offer there. There'll be one here at the Wasilla Library at Wassee, and then at my house in Wasilla will be our 3 classes. Then we'll be at Sutton, Big Lake, Palmer, Talkeetna, Willow. So it's very exciting. Thank you. Thanks for supporting your library. It will be 10 years old, September 22nd this year. It's remarkable.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Deputy Mayor Rubio and City Council members. My name is David Wilson. For the record, I'm a city resident, and tonight I'm talking on behalf of myself. And tonight I am really addressing the folks watching at home, the city employees, directors. I'm David Wilson. I am running for the mayor, for the city mayor for the city of Wasilla. And I just want to reach out to folks so if they want to contact me, talk to the city employees that may watch this later. They can contact me at davidwilsonformayor@gmail.com, davidwilson.com, or they can call my personal cell phone at 907-360-1691 if they want to talk, chit chat, learn a little bit more about me, my vision for the city and other items. And so I'll take up more of your time. Thank you guys for a quick, efficient meeting in business, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, looks like nobody else. We are now at Mayor, Clerk, Attorney, and Council comments. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Just will say, see you guys all here next regular meeting, August 24th, and the rest of my report is in connectivity in your clerk's report. So if you have any questions, let me know.
Madam Attorney, are you on the line still?
I am, but I have no comments, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Schmidt?
Very informative meeting. Thank you, Eric. I really appreciate everything, all the work you put into that, as well as Wendy. I appreciate the PowerPoint that you got for us on ClearGov. That was great information, so I appreciate all that. And thank you for the good meeting, everyone.
Councilmember Crafton?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Just a couple things tonight. One, just a reminder, we are in primary voting right now. And I want to say, I believe it's our sign that's sitting out at the lake. Is that correct? I want to say a big thank you to that. I've had a few people say that it was a good reminder to have that sign out there, even though it wasn't our election. It's nice to see that out there. So you have until next Tuesday, August 18th, get out and vote. The primary is just as important as the general election because it's going to determine who is there for the general election. But on the note of that sign, maybe it's our attorney that can speak to it. What's the rules on temporary signs? What is our code? And I guess I'll preface it with the truck that wants to park directly in front of that sign of ours right now.
Do you, Councilman Crafton, do you want me to, do you want me to read the rule
You
on
don't-
temporary
you don't
signs, or
have
would
to
you like
read
me to
it.
just provide you a email on, I don't know the rule without just sort of delving into the code. But what I can do is, it might be more productive, I can provide an email, or I can provide a memo or an update, where I
Yeah.
provide the sort of rules regarding temporary signs
So what I'll say is,
at the next meeting.
I mean, I understand wanting to promote your business, but putting a sign in the back of your truck and then parking it on city property and then moving it consistently, I feel like is trying to skirt the rules on what a temporary sign is. And now it's blocking our sign technically. And so I'm curious to see have we said something to the business owner? Or is this something that is in compliance, I guess is my question. And I'm seeing a lot of the administration looking around at each other, trying to figure it out. So, I mean, it's a conversation we can have afterwards. I just thought I'd bring it up for right now, unless somebody has something they wanted to say about it.
Public Director Shaw.
Through the deputy mayor. So code compliance has been in touch with that business and informed them that they are violating the city code for off-premise signs, and reminded them that even though it's in a truck, it still can't be there day in and day out. So they had contact either, I think it was today, because we're getting complaints that it's blocking our sign. So it should be moving, and if it's not, it'll go through the code compliance process.
Okay, yeah, it's one of those, I think during business hours, they park it out there, and then at the end of the day and over the weekends, it stays back at their place of business. So other than that, the other question I did have was in regards to the Aspen property there. Have we gone through code violation measures? I mean, just a yes or no is fine. Have we initiated processes on it?
Attorney Holly, are you on there?
I wasn't sure if our police lieutenant here would have, yes, we have received complaints, because all our complaints go through the police department now.
Yep. So Lieutenant Lopez with
We're-
the police department. Oh, go ahead. The attorney wanted to speak.
Oh, I was just going to ask, are you talking about the Aspen property?
Correct.
Yes. The city is in the process of going through actions regarding that property.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that's at least what we've initiated process. I appreciate it for now. Thank you. Great meeting tonight and very informative with all of our presentations we've had. So it's a very good meeting. Thank you.
Councilmember Cottle.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Yep, good meeting tonight. I did attend that environmental assessment public meeting out at the airport. It was very, very informative. Lots of good information, lots of good updates. It was very well attended. I was very impressed on the amount of questions that did come from the public and how succinctly they were answered, and concerns were talked about, things like that. So I was very impressed with that. Councilmember Rubio was there also, but it was really good, and I'm really glad when we have that public process, and it makes me really happy when they're well attended. So that was great, and Eric, all your people did a great job there. So, and I even got to learn a little more about you when I was there. I did want to mention that ClearGov, if any of you get a chance, get online and with their website and look at it. They've got some good little videos. They've got a lot of really good information on there. If you're a little fuzzy on how things kind of integrate a little bit, things like that, there's a lot of good information. So, just take a few minutes and look at it, and just educate yourself a little bit. And I think it will make those that are not real comfortable with it, it will make you a little bit more comfortable if you just take a little bit of time and get online and look through it and stuff. So there's a lot of good information there. And other than that, hopefully it's still nice out and we can get out there and enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Graham.
Thank you, and a great meeting for those of you that came and stayed. We certainly appreciate it. The best way to be heard is to sit here and do that. We don't have a local newspaper anymore, and so being heard happens best here. So I appreciate your being here. Unfortunately, you had to stay for quite a while, but that's kind of the way government works sometimes. But believe me, you are being heard, and And, it's not the first time, you know, that property has come up. So it is on a variety of different radars to try and see what we can do there. I did want to mention this, draft MTP project list. And the reason I brought up, you know, what's the deadline on this is why are we being presented with something where we're supposed to make a decision about city money being spent on such short notice? We did the same thing with the budget. You know, we said, well, we'll never do that again. And here we are a couple months later with this in front of us. You know, that I'm assuming the planning organization spent some time looking at this, you know, and I'm assuming that the administration spent a lot of time looking at this. And now we're coming up with this ranked project list, which is the first time we've seen it, you know, 2 weeks before it's due. You know, I mean, that's not, you know, I'm not going to say that anybody's at fault here or anything, but I'm just going to say that's really not an acceptable process. So whether the fix is here in the city or whether the fix is with the planning organization, I don't know, but that information needs to get out there sooner. Because, you know, it talks about, you know, 9% match on these funds. You know, some of these projects are pretty significant, $6 million, you know, $5 million. That's more than chump change for us to deal with, you know, so we should know exactly what those projects are and, you know, how that is being funded and how that affects other things in there. So for the next meeting, you know, myself, the mayor, and Ms. Cottle will be out of town. You know, we'll be up in Fairbanks for that meeting. But prior to that, I would like to see some detail on this, and I would like it to be available to the council. You know, give us some graphs, give us some charts, give us some reasons for expenses, and give us some reasons why these are the highest ranked projects for the city. You know, how the MPO lists them, you know, they shake it through their thing, but when it ends up on our MPO list, we should know why it's there and how it's affecting the city. You know, particularly the one thing I looked at that gave me quite a bit of thinking to do is this, our number one project, you know, Nelson Avenue Multimodal Parkway, Graybark Drive to Lucille Street, essentially connects us to the retirement facility up there on Primrose, which is a different project there on Lucille Street. And then this one connects it down to Iditarod Park there. But these are all good projects, but we should kind of know why we think the city administration ranks them in the order that they did. And we should have some time to be able to discuss them, which I think is what you know, Mr. Crafton was trying to do today by reorganizing the agenda, was to give us time to discuss, but it didn't work out that way. But I would like to see, you know, prior to the next meeting, something that I can take with me and study, you know, on the airplane up to Fairbanks and understand what's going on here. So I'm not saying anybody did anything wrong, but I do think when we know we've got a timeline to meet, you know, we need to make sure that the appropriate folks have plenty of time to work. I mean, we don't tell the planning commission, oh, we need you to make a decision tonight on something we just decided on. You know, so let's not tell ourselves that same sort of thing. But it's a good meeting, lots of information, lots of good input. Always appreciate a good meeting. I was kind of expecting to be out of here about an hour ago, but I don't mind staying at all. So, but thanks everybody for being here. Thanks to the staff for a lot of great information.
Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you. Good meeting. I don't really have any further comment.
All right, back to me. It's because you see that little bit of sunshine still? I know, right? With no further business at hand, I'm adjourning the meeting.